Well, I welcome everyone to this monthly edition of Plant-Based Nutrition 101, which is a part of Creating Connection Canada's online offerings. And we invite everyone into forming inclusive and welcoming community that is committed to authentic conversation, holistic wellness practices, and meaningful activities, all of which this is about. We have usual presenters and hosts every month, Janet and Jim Poirier from Collingwood, but they are away this month and next month. So we're bringing back a guest presenter and speaker to share with us tonight, Heather Mason Murray from Mason Murray Meadows, and she will be talking to us about cost-effective gardening and how to produce and process food for your household. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Heather. A warm welcome to you tonight, Heather. Thanks for returning.
Thanks so much, Troy, and everyone for welcoming me here again. And I did very much enjoy myself last year when I had the opportunity to come in and talk about gardening. And the big message that last time was, just like Troy and I were talking about earlier, it was definitely just get out there and do it. You don't have to have a lot of, everything doesn't have to be perfect. And you definitely learn by doing. I learn by doing every year for so many things. So for those of you that don't know me, I am Heather Murray, and we have a plant-based hobby farm here in Southern Ontario, which is actually in Orno. And we didn't actually start as a plant-based farm. We started off, we had chickens, and we had eggs, and we had broiler chickens, and then we became plant-based. And with us becoming plant-based, our hobby farm kind of evolved with us, because our thoughts and our practices completely changed. We did all of our focus on all the plants. So every year I have a goal, and I'm going to talk to you about goals with growing your garden and taking a look at how to do this most cost effectively. So we've had the farm since 2016, and we really enjoy it. And again, we're learning everything. Like my favorite thing that I learned last year that I wasn't really taking advantage of was when we have onions that you can cut down the tops of the onions while they're still growing and dehydrate them. And it's my most favorite thing from last year. They're already growing, you might as well use them, and they are delicious and nutritious. So with that being said, I would really like to get started on the presentation. I use a lot of different methods, different like permaculture methods in the way that we have the hobby farm. And it's very much a group effort, because we have 3 generations here, myself and my husband and my parents, and my son is here as well. The youngest is here as well. So we have a commercial greenhouse where we start our plants. We start our seeds before the season actually begins. So before we can put anything in the ground, we're using our commercial greenhouse. But you know, you don't have to have a commercial greenhouse to start your seeds. All you need is a sunny window like I have behind me. And you can start them and get a jump start on your season. So here's just a picture of the greenhouse here. And I've used mostly, well, I've used the pictures from our farms. You can see what we do here and how everything looks. So just to introduce ourselves a little bit more, we actually didn't really know what we were doing when we bought this farm. And we've done so much research, and we've done it together. And it's really good to do these things as a team. So we did that as a team. We've had successes, we've had losses, And, you know, it's a learning experience. So I think if we go about it, looking at it that way, everything's positive, right? So I talked about not being plant-based when we started, but we had inspiration to provide for ourselves. And that's really a driving force. So here we have our Facebook page. It's just a link. If you just type in Murray Mason Meadows, it should come up for our Facebook page. You can see some of the videos and some of the things that we've done there, just to kind of follow our journey if you're interested in something like that. So like I said, we've lengthened the growing season with the heated greenhouse. And I really have to give my husband so much credit for that, because what he did is he created a rocket mass heater. Like, he created the heat in there for nighttime. And that's a whole other topic in itself, but really happy with it. So we grow our own produce and really learn to keep that harvest and freeze and can and dehydrate. And then we sell excess produce. And my favorite thing to do, one of my favorite things to do, is to dry things. So basically we use the dehydrator and we make seasonings, and I make tinctures, salves, and salts. And I also offer homesteading workshops in how to do this yourself, to share with the community and how we're living this lifestyle. And another thing that I do is I really like to always end up having more plants than I will ever need, which is kind of a good place to be in, having more than not enough. So we end up donating them to our local community garden. So the local community garden is, we just have one in Newcastle, and it's a great thing to do. If you don't have the space, community garden is a great way to meet people and to just really take advantage of that program. But I was really happy to be able to provide a lot of plants for them. Okay, so why garden? Again, I kind of touched on how you really need a motivator, and I've broken it down. To me, there are four main topics, main reasons to actually garden. So it's the satisfaction, environmental, economical, and self-sufficiency. So under satisfaction, it's a learning experience you can share with your family. Gives you a feeling of accomplishment. I really like that. It's emotionally relaxing. Soil increases the serotonin in the brain. It makes you happy. I didn't even know this. This is just something that was happening, and it's wonderful. It's actually scientifically proven. Exposure to vitamin D, increased exercise, and nurturing something rewards you, and it does have a measurable outcome, right? And connection to nature in a digital world. So it can get you in a nice zen. So also it gives you a balance and keeps you grounded, and it can transform space into an oasis. A connection with simpler times. I actually really like that part. And to me, it's completely therapy. So the way that I see it, we really need to have these motivators. So satisfaction, absolutely, you got to have satisfaction in what you do. Me personally, I need to find satisfaction in whatever I'm doing in order to want to do it. I will find a way to have achievable goals. So gardening builds strength. It promotes sleep. You're outside out all day or however long you can be out there. You're going to come in from all that great fresh air, and it's going to help you sleep, and helps you maintain a healthy weight, of course. And here's something: if you haven't had a garden, or if you've never grown anything, fresh produce, it tastes better than the store-bought stuff, because that you don't know how long it's been sitting there, right? Bragging rights, of course. Look what I did. It makes you feel good, right? It's pride and in something that you've done, and to me, it gives me a feeling of empowerment. It's just, I realize I'm not actually doing it on my own. I didn't create that seed, but I can help it along. So then there's the environmental aspect of it. It prevents soil erosion. And how it does that is the roots underground, they're keeping everything together rather than the soil washing away. So you think about it that way, it's a really good way to prevent soil erosion. It cleans the air in the ground. It's kind of like a filter, right? So it's decreasing carbon dioxide, increasing oxygen, and of course, it reduces your carbon footprint. Here in this picture, this was my sacrificial garden, and it's kind of a strange thing. We were getting bunnies, so I thought, okay, I'm going to have a sacrificial garden, and the bunnies can just come and eat here. And so I just let it go. And that's tomatoes there, and that's pumpkin, and then there's kale in the bottom right. And they didn't really bother with it. So, and I didn't really tend to it. I watered it and left it for them. And this is what happens when you don't do anything to the garden to tend to it. It will just grow. So that being said, I put that in a whole compost heap. So it had so many nutrients in it. Compost does wonderful things. So yeah, that was a really interesting exercise that they didn't even bother with. So I had excess produce. So environmental. It creates a habitat for smaller life forms, birds and insects, and it provides protection for them. Now, when we did have the chickens, they would hide underneath the huge foliage. It was really interesting to see that. There are so many pollinators that we have in our garden. It's amazing. It fills an open area in the yard. If you have an area that you just don't even know what to do with, and you know that something should go there, but you don't know what. I like to put zinnias, and there's actually a picture of a zinnia there. It actually comes up a little bit more full. That one was starting to go down a bit when I took that picture with the monarch there. So zinnias, they'll grow pretty high. They'll grow maybe 3 feet high, and they will fill an area, and then you can save the seeds and you can do it again. It's very cost-effective way to fill up an area with flowers. Like, you don't have to only do produce. I would definitely suggest zinnias and curb appeal, right? It's going to look really pretty, and for a good price. So environmental, it also replenishes nutrients in the soil. So it's putting back. There are certain things that are going to take out, but it's also going to leave nutrients in the soil as well. It helps to reduce noise pollution. We actually planted a row of trees because we are by the Highway 115 and wanted to cut down on that noise. So we planted a bunch of evergreen trees over there, and they're still growing. So I'll let you know how that works out. It helps to ensure a cleaner groundwater, and it helps to reduce urban temperatures by having all this foliage around. It reduces waste, and we're avoiding pesticides. And here's an interesting one. It helps you be more aware of the weather. That is just something that happened that I didn't even think about, because we're constantly, what's going on with the weather, what's the temperature, what's it going to be, that type of thing. Economical. So certain plants will cost less, and we'll get into that to grow yourself than to actually buy them. Seeds are pretty economical to buy versus the finished produce. You can save your seeds to plant for free. Seeds want to grow. That's why they're inside everything, right? Like, they have so many of them. Here I have a loofah that we grew, and it's basically, it's a squash. I mean, you can eat it, but if you let it dry, then that's where your loofah sponge comes from. Put it right in the shower and exfoliates you really well. So and you can sell or barter what you produce, right? Oh, you've got this. Oh, can I have this? You know, it goes both ways, right? So it's also economical. You can ask friends for clippings or seeds. If other people are doing it, you might as well do it together, right? It reduces your grocery bill, especially in season. So knowing how to preserve food strategically will really reduce your grocery bill like all year. And it's an activity, it doesn't really require a lot of money to do. If you only try one thing and then you move on, and then the next year you try 2 different things, it's a build up, and you're going to be saving those seeds. Okay, so self-sufficiency. This is what I call my bunker. Now, I have a lot of dried things. You can't see the whole room, but there's more dried things in there that I have. As you can tell, I really like to can. And what you can't see is my freezer that we also freeze, and that is a wonderful way to save money. So reducing the dependency on the commercial food chain. This is number 1 on my list. If I could, if I didn't actually work outside the home, I would definitely, let's rephrase this. When I retire, that's going to be my goal, because we've lost a few generations here. My grandmother knew how to do this. This was before we had our grocery stores, right? What do people do? They put up the harvest, right? And so we've lost that art, and I'm really passionate about doing it for my family, and happy to share that with other people. So also independence from poor quality food. I don't know if now being in this group, you probably do read all the labels. You probably are very aware of what's in food. And I don't want to be consuming something I can't pronounce. My idea is to go to the whole foods, getting back to nature, getting back to those nutrients. So that's a great goal at being self-sufficient. So food produced in your own garden provides the most nutrients, right? Also, like independence from toxic chemicals and from foodborne illness. If you're producing it yourself, you're going to wash it well. It boosts household food security. Just taking a look at my bunker, I can't tell you how happy I am when I walk in there. Just to be able to know that if anything happens, or for some reason I can't work, or I can't get out of the house, I can't go to the grocery store, or I can't have anything brought in, there's that food security. I know that it's there. And of course, the independence from the rising food costs. Have you noticed your grocery bill going up and up and up like everything else is? You don't need a huge space to make an impact. Here are the leeks that we did last year. They've been amazing. I'm still using them. I've dried them, I've canned some in sauces, and I've frozen them. They're amazing. So providing for a family in a crisis, so loss of a job, or if you're sick. And to me, it's peace of mind being a provider. So again, these are the reasons that that I've come up with why to garden. And to me, these are motivators, right? This is why it happens. If you don't have a reason to do it, or if you don't know why you're doing it, it's very hard to continue to do something. So this is why I wanted to go here and talk about this. So whatever your reason to garden, you got to start out with a plan, a goal and a plan. So me, it's everything, because I am an overachiever. So all of those things are my motivators. And it does take time to get there. And I break it down into achievable goals. And every year it's just increased a little bit more. So keep in mind, your garden success is directly proportionate to the amount of time and effort you put into it. Clearly, there are a lot of plants there, and that's a lot of time and effort. That's only one part of the greenhouse. There was at one time last year, every single pot that I could find and every single every single container that I had was growing a plant. I had nothing left. I was looking for more, and it was an incredible amount of plants that were actually done. So that's just the dedication. So to start off, ask yourself what you want to produce, and then what do you want to do with it? Okay, it's not, so take a look at what your family eats on a regular basis and what's in your growing zone. So if your family doesn't eat radishes, don't plant radishes. I realize it sounds like a really simple concept, but you can get really caught up in, oh, I'm growing this, but if you're not eating it, then don't do it. Like, just take a look at what you eat and plan from there. So we're in zone 5B to 6A here in Southern Ontario, which means our usual frost date is in May. And that means we can start to plant outdoors after the last date of risk of frost. So if you're not sure your frost date, look it up, and you can be able to go from there. So then also what you need to think about is, do you want to grow flowers? Like, what area are you going to start? What do you want to grow? For me, it's food, but I also grow flowers because I like pretty things. So flowers, vegetables, you want to concentrate on those vegetables. If you want to concentrate on herbs, absolutely love herbs. I just have a passion for them because whatever you're making to eat, herbs can enhance it exponentially. Just amazing. So herbs are a great thing. And fruit, of course. So you also need to look up what grows well in your hardiness zone. So here we are in 5B6A. This is what grows: the tomatoes, herbs, potatoes, squash, pears and plums, apples, onions, peas, the brassicas, which is like your cabbage and your broccoli, the zinnias, like I talked about before, cornflowers, that type of thing. They grow really well. Sunflowers grow really well here too. So there's just some of the pictures there. So take a look. Do you eat them? And then how much do you normally eat them? So this is a starting point. Notice what your family eats. Notice what you eat. Notice what your family eats, and write it down. How often do you eat it? So in my household, we eat a lot of Italian and Mexican food. So we like tomatoes, which is a good thing because tomatoes grow here. So every week, my husband likes a chili. So we do that, and usually a pasta dish or some other tomato dish. And we also like salsa. So here I have a salsa that I made. Really like the salsa. I also hear. So since tomatoes grow in our climate, I'm going to take full advantage of growing them in season to last all year. So this results in increased nutrition and the accomplishment that I talked about earlier, and of course saving money, which we're going to get to. So my goal was to make enough tomatoes to have this each week. I want to have 1 liter jar of tomato sauce for chili. I want this for chili. And then I wanted another one for pasta. Got my pasta right here. And then I wanted, then I wanted the salsa, like I showed you, but this one's a little bit smaller. I'm not going to eat a whole liter of salsa in one week, but this is good. And then a large Ziploc bag, which I did not take out of the freezer, of cherry tomatoes, or like the salad tomatoes, for the chili and pasta. And I'll just use half in each and put them in frozen. They come out beautiful. And I also dry tomatoes for sauces. And you can see the picture of them there. They're dried, and then I'll powder them. And then I'll have like tomato powder, and I use it pretty much like tomato paste, and it really enhances everything. So my goal was 3 liters of tomatoes per week. That's my goal. So see what you eat, see what you eat, see if you can grow it in your zone, and then have a goal of, this is what I want every week. And I find that works really well. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of math. So those 3 liters of tomatoes times 52 weeks for the year, which I figured is 156 liters of tomatoes. And that's sauced. So they're going to be more volume if they're not sauced. So that's sauced. So that's not even counting all the tomatoes that we just eat anyway in the summer. So you're going to need 6.5 pounds of fresh tomatoes for 1 liter of sauce. So that 156 liters that we were talking about that I'm going to need for the 3 liter a week goal times the 6.5 pounds. That's how many fresh tomatoes it takes to produce 1 liter of sauce. It's going to, this is a big number. Just remember, I'm on a farm. Okay. This is my goal. So I knew that I was going to need just over 1,000 pounds of fresh tomatoes to turn into sauce. So I need this many tomatoes to turn into this much sauce. That's fine. I'm up for that challenge. So I'm going to take that over 1,000 pounds of fresh tomatoes and divide it by 20. Why am I dividing it by 20? Because that's the number of pounds each plant typically produces. It's usually between 10 and 30. So we'll take 20. So when I do that, I get 50. So I'm going to need 50 tomato plants to meet my goal of 3 liters of sauce per week for a year. Okay, so now I know how much am I going to plant. So I'm working smarter, right? Not harder, right? And so that's almost 1 plant for each week of the year, if you really think about it. That's a lot of plants. Not everybody has that room, but not everybody has my goals. Those are my goals. Everyone's goals are going to be different. So again, I have the room for 50 tomato plants. And to put it in perspective, we actually planted 350 tomato plants last year and used all of them. That's a little crazy. So, but what I would suggest, if you want to do tomatoes, a good goal, if you want to do tomato sauce, is to do it like once a week. That's a great goal. You're gonna get that great nutrition. You're gonna have all those wonderful, satisfying things, you know, of being able to produce that yourself. You're gonna feel self-sufficient. You're gonna, you know, this is a good goal if this is what you want, and you're gonna tailor it to you. Maybe you want one every other week, then we will go with that. So let's say we're gonna do 1 liter of sauce a week. So of course that's 52 liters of sauce that you're going to need. So we're going to times that by 6.5 pounds of those fresh tomatoes, because fresh tomatoes are more than when we break it down. You're going to need to produce, so that's the number needed to produce 1 liter of sauce. You're going to need 338. You're going to need 338 pounds of fresh tomatoes. And it also sounds like a lot. Take that 338 and divide it by 20. Remember, that was the amount of pounds each tomato plant typically produces in a year. And that equals 16.9 or 17. So you're going to need to plant 17 tomato plants to meet your goal of 1 liter of tomato sauce for the year. You can put that in half. Again, adjust your goals so you have achievable goals, right? So then I took it and compared it, because this is the economical part of it, right? So here's an all natural, this is a marinara sauce that you can get from Costco, $14.99 for 2 of them, 2 liters. So that's $7.50 each. You times that by 52 weeks in a year, that's $390 that you're spending having 1 liter of sauce per week. That's a lot of money, and that's a comparable sauce. And you don't, I don't know what else in that, but it's as comparable as I could get. So you might say, I'm going to, I'll get the Costco sauce. I don't really need that white linen sauce. So let's say we do the $2.99 Costco sauce. That's $155 per year. So you're still paying a lot of money. And, you know, you might just say, hey, what if I just go buy tomatoes and can and freeze them when they're in season? Are you going to save money? Well, approximately 72 cents a pound at Walmart. And if you think you need 6.5 pounds in order to make 1 liter of sauce, it's going to be $4.68 to produce 1 liter of sauce. So if you did that for the year, it's going to cost $243 for 1 liter of sauce per week for a year. So you'd be better off just buying the classical sauce at Walmart for that price. Okay, so then you're going to say, no, I'm not going to do that. What if I buy tomato plants and this is going to be cheaper? Well, am I going to save money? So we break it down. So breaking it down, this is all part of the process of what you're going to put in your garden, because you want to be smart about it for the economics of your home. So the average price of Roma tomatoes in Canada is $4. So we've decided on 17 plants, remember? So 17 times 4 is $68. Our numbers are coming down the more that we're doing it ourselves, right? So you will spend $68 buying enough tomato plants to produce 1 liter of sauce per week for a year. Okay, that's great. We're getting better. Well, then you're like, well, I think I can save even more. And to be more cost effective, I'm going to get seeds. How much does that cost? Average price is $2.49 for a pack of Roma seeds. Then you're going to need soil, of course. So the soil to start seeds indoors. Wanting to start your garden, start it now. Now is the absolute perfect time. Okay, so now is the right time. If you want to start anything from seed, get it going right now. Get a nice sunny window, put it out there, use whatever you have. You don't have to go out and buy fancy pots. You can use whatever you have in your house, and just make that work. That you can do it. Water them every day. One trick to do when you have the seeds is to put your hand over top of it every day as they're growing, because you don't want leggy seedlings, and the leggy seedlings, that's when they grow like they look like they've just grown like way tall, and they call that leggy, and that they don't have a strong stalk. So to get them strong, you want to put your hand over it. You want to have a breeze. They're going to be a lot hardier that way. So that is a really good way to make sure that you've got really good seedlings.
Heather, there's a question: which tomatoes were you using, and does it matter whether it's Roma or beefsteak?
Well, that is completely up to you. However, the Roma type, it's a meatier. They have like meatier flesh than the beefsteak. That being said, I did 8 different types of tomatoes last year, and I used them all in my sauce because they bring different flavors. So I would be more heavy on the Romas because it's going to be more of a pasty, and add some beefsteak to give it to enhance that flavor, because they're going to be a little more watery. That helps.
So those calculations are for any variety of tomato?
That is mostly the Roma, but yeah, it is for any variety. It's just going to be a little bit more watery if you're using anything other than the Roma. Yeah.
Great. And can you explain a little bit more what you meant by running your hand over the seedlings?
Okay, you're doing that because you're listening a response from the actual plant while it's growing. So when you're doing that, it has no choice but to strengthen itself, right? So it's going to strengthen its main stalk when you're just once a day, just put your hand right on top. Do I have a plant here? I will grab a plant and I will show you.
Be kind of like running your finger through a candle.
Yeah, you're just putting it right. That's all you're doing. Yeah. I have to show you that. It's good. Yeah. And that will help make it stronger. It will grow better. Okay. We don't want leggy seedlings. So we're going to talk about prepping the growing area. I use cardboard on the area that I want to grow, or you can see here that I have some plastic. I'm pointing, this is not going to work. You can see in the background there that it looks like, kind of looks like a garbage bag. It's not a garbage bag. It is plastic though. We have plastic sheeting. And what it does is it's going to kill the grass that's there. It's going to prepare everything. So if you're wanting to plant and you have a place where you want to plant, instead of digging up that grass, you're just going to cover it over with cardboard's the best way to do it. Cover it up with cardboard and let that grass just slowly go away. So then you're not going to have to dig there. And here's the thing, no dig is so much easier. It's kind of lazy and it's the easiest way to do it. So leave it on there, let that grass die. And I would do it now. So while your seeds are growing, you're gonna do that. And if you're growing tomato plants, a good place to put them is along a fence line if you have the room. If you're gonna do this many, you're gonna need to plant them 2 feet apart, and you're gonna need 34 feet of free space. So putting them against a fence line is gonna be easier because tomatoes, you're going to want to stake, but you can just use string. Actually, you can just affix string right up to the fence, and then you can just stake the rest of your tomato plant against it, and that is a cheaper way than buying those little cages. So, okay, so 34 feet, what you're gonna do is put your cardboard down. Not everybody has 34 feet of free space along a fence line, then consider growing them in containers. Now, what you see here is a kiddie pool. Those are tomato plants there. You just put some holes in the bottom of it and you get some soil and you can plant them in there. You can get at least 4, depending on the size of the kiddie pool. They can grow very well in there. The other picture is with a filing cabinet, an old filing cabinet. So you can be really creative. You can go on Pinterest and you can see how other people have done it. If you can't think of any creative ways to do it. So it's a really good resource for you that way. Just make sure that you do the holes for drainage. And raised container gardens, of course, are really amazing to do if you don't have a lot of room. Okay, so we have the cardboard. You're gonna need to buy some topsoil. So when it's time to plant, you're gonna get your topsoil. You're gonna need about, I would say, I estimated 6 of them it's under $20. Then I'll add compost to the soil. And here's another way to save money. So I'm in the region of Durham, and the Works Department, they have compost days, and they're always posted online. I will tell you, that picture on the right is from my husband and I when we got the compost. You bring your shovels and you bring your blue bins and you shovel it and put it in the back of your car and take it home. We would actually do tours of the different works departments throughout our municipality. So we would go to Bowmanville, we would go to Oshawa. So one weekend it's in Bowmanville, another weekend it's in Oshawa, another weekend it's in Scugog. So we would plan our little trips that way, and then we'd have this beautiful thing of compost. It was wonderful. And you add that. So you're adding nutrients to the soil, right? And they don't charge you for it. Actually, I believe that it was a donation, a food donation. So I'm sure I bought a canned food, and that was great. And then when you're there, they actually gave us the composting bags. So we had enough composting bags for a very long time. So, and composting at your own home, if you're able to do that, is also a really great way to get that compost. Okay, so we're still on the tomato plants. So dig down enough to place your started tomato plant approximately 2 feet apart. And a good way when you are planting your tomato plants is to plant them in a little bit sideways. So then the base of it is going to be nice and secure and it's going to grow up to the fence line, right? So you're going to put them in just a little bit sideways and then put them up. Okay, so I measure it out how far the 2 feet is going to be. And then I dig holes, and then I'll go in and put the, actually Andrew and I do it together. And then we'll go in and put the tomato plants in where they go. You just got to make sure you give them enough space. You'll water them in the morning when it's not hot out. You don't want to get your leaves wet if you can avoid it in the hot sun. You don't want to get those leaves wet in the hot sun. So more water is needed if you're planting in containers, and water every day or tomatoes are going to split. Have you ever seen tomatoes that they have that little split in them? That's because they have uneven watering. So they missed a couple of days of watering, and that's what happens. So we're on a well and we use rainwater system. So our cost of water is, we don't pay for water. So as the tomatoes grow, you'll want to stake them with string, like I said, or ties to the fence for support. You're going to want to make sure, and be sure to remove the suckers as they appear. So a sucker, and I don't have one here. So basically when your tomato plant grows, it grows like a tree, right? So we've got one branch going, I'm going to call it a branch, but one branch going one way, one going another way. And then in the middle, what's going to happen? Another one's going to grow in the middle. Take your fingers and just pull that one right off, that middle one. And otherwise, you're going to have tomatoes like that, my sacrificial garden. Remember the sacrificial garden and how big that was and how I did absolutely nothing to it? And it was wild and crazy. You're going to get more tomatoes if you pull the suckers off, because then the plant is going to put more of its energy into the fruit rather than the foliage, rather than all the green. So make sure to take those suckers off. So how much did it cost me to plant 17 tomatoes in my garden? Your seeds are $2.49, potting soil $7.99, topsoil $17.94, so $28.42, under 30 bucks. And we can do it better than that price. So my secret is that I saved my seeds. And this is actually, yeah, you can see where I save them. So it's more economical, but most importantly, it's the most important thing. A seed that has already seen a season in your garden is already prepared against local disease, the local disease threat, the heat water tolerance, and it'll already be climatized to the specific environment you're going to put it in to grow. So these are like, they become super seeds, really. They already know what to expect and they already know how to react. So if you are saving seeds from something you've grown in your garden, it is a super seed. That's what I'm going to call it. So no cost for my seeds. I put them on a paper towel and let them dry, and then they're ready for the next planting season. I actually keep them on the paper towels until I start to get organized for actually planting, and then I'll kind of pick them off and put them in an envelope. You have the option to start your tomato seeds from the romas in your kitchen. You could try that. Why not? This is all about taking chances. Gardening is just, it's about faith, really. Please just have the faith that it's going to grow, and you hope for the best, and you cross your fingers and you do everything you can do. It's just like having kids. So seeds want to grow into plants. That's why there's so many of them. You ever seen a tomato? There's so many of them in there. So what I've done there is, as you can see, that's my dehydrator, and I have the tops of the tomatoes. I was dry. I was wanting to dry, and then the rest I just wanted for the picture to put in for the seeds, so you could see all the ones that I'd done. But yeah, it's It's not really a lot of work if you're already cutting into the tomato, because the seeds all come out and everything, and then put them right on your paper towel. On your paper towel. Most important thing to do there is to label them, because I have not labeling them. You're gonna get what you get. You don't know. Okay, so now we're at 25.93. Those, by the way, are all tomato plants that I have. Those were my bigger tomato plants from last year, and I hadn't planted them yet. So on a farm, I'm constantly adding compost and potash or ashes from the fireplace to the soil. So we're not really adding any more soil. We're just adding nutrients, just nutrients and compost, which is also nutrients. So I'm going to remove that 17.94 from that amount, right? Because I'm not actually buying that. That leaves us with 7.99. And I can reduce that even more because the volume of what I plant, I buy the more economical size potting soil. I will buy the potting soil because it's so important to have that, which reduces my cost for 17 plants to about 10 cents. Does not cost much. I'm not using much of the soil to start them off. 10 cents. So that's kind of crazy. It doesn't really cost a lot of money to start them off. So now, now I'm going to talk about preserving the tomatoes, and you can be as simple or as complicated as you want to be, because this is all about you and what you're willing to put into this or not into this. You can go simple and just wash the tomatoes and put them in Ziploc bags and freeze them whole. And I do this. Go ahead.
Just a quick question before you move on about seeds. How long will they last?
Oh my goodness. So those ones I'll use most, or at least half of them, the next year, but you're going to be good for at least 5 years for those seeds. They tell you to use them the next year, but you know what? They're still going to produce. I would not even bat an eye at least 5 years. Just make sure that you don't leave them in the heat. Like I can't leave them in the greenhouse. I'm going to bring them in the house and keep them in a regular climate.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so at the end of the season, when I am extremely tired because I go out and in my wheelbarrow getting all these tomatoes every day after work and canning, sometimes I'm a little tired and I will just wash them and put them in the freezer, and they're absolutely fine. It is like a taste of summer when I take those out and I will throw them in a chili bowl and then they'll just break down. It's great. Or you can can them, and canning them, it's not hard. I'm here to tell you it's not hard, and it might look intimidating if you've never done it before, but when I get people here doing canning workshops, they can't believe how easy it is, really. So go to the local secondhand store and get some jars. That's a good place to get them. Then you just buy the new lids to go with them. This is how I just reach over in my drawer here. You can just buy the lids to go on top of them. You'll want new lids if you're getting them from the secondhand store, or sometimes people have them. Ask friends and family to save jars for you, or sometimes, yeah, people might have a thing of jars and not know what to do with them. Look on Kijiji. It's a great place to get stuff. Yeah, a lot of people might have a box and just not even know what to do with them. So buying jars is something that builds up over time. If that's somewhere that you want to go, like you can start with 12 1 year. Well, you can start with however many I said that we need to can for the first year, and then build it up. I wouldn't buy them if they were more than $9.99 a dozen. And they do go on sale, and I'm always looking at Canadian Tire, Rona, Home Depot. Look for the sales. I would not pay more than $9.99. And you're going to reuse them, right? This is something you're going to be able to keep using. It's worth the investment. And it's also worth saying that if you give away your sauce, ask for the jar back. When you're handing it to them, here you go. Do you mind giving me back the jar? And then they're gonna want to give you back the jar because they'll want a refill because it's gonna be so good. So here's my process that I've perfected over the years, and I'll do variations on it to keep things interesting. So you're gonna need to sterilize jars. Sterilizing is really easy. You throw them in the dishwasher. That's how you sterilize. It's awesome. I think there's even a sterilize button on mine. You're gonna put them in the dishwasher, and then you're gonna turn it on and kind of try to time it to be done when your sauce is ready and when you're ready to ladle them in. Put them in the dishwasher and just wait to turn it on, just while you're getting your sauce ready. Go get your tomatoes. There's my wheelbarrow out there getting all my stuff when I come home from work. So if we're doing, so wash them. And if you're doing 6 liters of sauce, so you're going to do 6 liters of sauce at a time, right? It's going to be a dozen 500 milliliter jars. Now 500 milliliter jars are this size. And just to show you in comparison to the 1 liter, right? So sometimes it's easier to work with the smaller jars, and depending on what your household will consume, sometimes it's easier to do the 500 milliliter jars than it is to do the 1 liter. It's up to you. You can always use 2 of these. So remember, we need 6.5 pounds of tomatoes for a liter. We need 39 pounds to make this recipe. 39 pounds, not bad. That's almost 40 pounds. So it takes 4 Roma tomatoes to make up a pound. It takes 4 Roma, what did I write here? It takes 4 Roma tomatoes to make up a pound, or approximately 150 Roma tomatoes for the recipe, for reference. So you're gonna need like 150 Romas. And you're gonna need some lemon juice, some salt, and some basil. So you're better off to get you can get the real lemon, or you can get lemons. It's completely up to you. That's just gonna make sure that you have enough acidity in your sauce for canning. Wash your tomatoes, and you have a choice. If you have a food mill, now this is my food mill, and it just attaches onto my KitchenAid mixer. If you have the mill, I just cut the tomatoes and put them through the mill. And what the mill does is in that top portion, it's going to keep the seeds and the skins. And because I don't waste anything, if I can help it. Okay, so on the right-hand side of the mill is the seeds and the skin. And then I put those in the dehydrator, and here they are here, all dehydrated. And I'm just going to powder that. And I will put that into some of my spices, or I'll put it with like other herbs, or I will just add it in powder form. Some people don't like the taste, the mouthfeel of the skins and the seeds, and that's completely up to you for whatever type of sauce you want to do. And then you're adding the pulp into a stock pot, and you're bringing it to a boil and then simmering it. And this will reduce the consistency. So here's, at this point, if you've put a bunch of beefsteak tomatoes through the mill, or that's going to be more watery, you can like simmer it for a little bit longer to get to a better consistency for you, so it's not as watery. You can add some salt and herbs at this point if you want. And the big thing is to keep the lid off and to let it reduce. And if you don't have a food mill, then blanch your tomatoes in the water until the skin's split, and take them off the heat, let them cool, and then the skins will just peel right off. It's really super easy. Then I put the rest of the tomato through a mesh strainer to remove the seeds if you want. It does take a long time, or you can just live with the seeds. It's completely up to you. I've done it both ways. This sauce here, I didn't bother. I was tired that day. I didn't want to put it through the mill. So you can see the seeds in this one. So that's fine too. Put the tomatoes back in the pot, let them simmer, and then reduce a little bit. And when you're satisfied with the sauce, take out your sterilized jars from the dishwasher, add a teaspoon of lemon juice into the bottom of the jar. Just put it in the bottom, it's fine. And then use a ladle and a collar. You're gonna need a collar so it doesn't go everywhere. And you're just gonna ladle it in. And halfway through, you're gonna put 3 or 4 basil leaves, and then you're gonna ladle more sauce. And then you're gonna stop about a 1/2 inch headspace. Want it to stop about here because you need a little bit of room for that vacuum seal, right? Put the lid and the collar on it. I don't keep mine with the collars, but when you're actually going to put them in the water, as you can see in the picture there, it has the collar. Set it aside until all the jars are full. And in the meantime, your water's on a boil in a water bath canner. So using a special tool, these are really hot when you're taking them out, when you're working with them. So you're going to need this special tool, and you can buy like a little canning set for under $20, or go to the secondhand store. You got to make sure there's at least 1 inch of water above the jars while it's boiling. And then you let it boil for 35, 40 minutes. Put them all on the counter on a tea towel and remove the jars and put them down. And you just let them sit for 24 hours. You're not even going to touch them. And you're going to be hearing these little pings, ping, ping, ping. It's music. I absolutely love this. And when it's making that pinging noise, when a good seal's been reached, you want that seal to make sure that it's going to be shelf stable, right? And the reason you can do it with tomatoes is because they're acidic enough, and you've added just a little bit of lemon juice just to make sure it's enough acidity that we can water back in it. So check the good seal's been made on each jar. There's a little indent in the top of the jar. And if you put your finger on top, you have a good seal if nothing moves. If you hear something or you can move it a little bit, you don't have a seal, and you're going to want to put that in the fridge and use it right away. That's after the 24 hours. Check that, because it could take up to 24 hours for that to actually occur. And then you just put it on the shelf until you're ready to use it. And that is the mystery of water bath canning. Are there any questions before I move on to basil?
Someone's asking, can you just freeze the entire jar?
It's a little more difficult when you're dealing with glass to freeze. I mean, you can, but you'd have to make sure that you have enough room in the jar. You would want a little bit more room from the top, because I wouldn't want them to break. You have that. I'd almost want to just put it in a Ziploc bag or something different. And I don't like to use, as much as I have these, I don't like to have like too much plastic, but it's completely up to you. They do have like the jars from like Bell and Mason that are freezer ones that you can use. But if you're comfortable with using other containers, like the non-BPA containers, I would freeze them in that rather than an actual jar. There's just, to me, that's just too much of a risk.
Thanks. Someone else is asking that sometimes the ping won't happen and it's not sealed. What might they be doing wrong? They try leaving half an inch space and dry the surface of the jar, but sometimes it still doesn't seal. Okay, well, that is actually a really great question, because I missed one very important step. So questions are awesome. So what's happened is, before you actually put the lid on,
I take a paper towel, or you can use any other towel, and you're going to clean this top area here because you want to make sure that there is no little bits of food on it. You don't want anything else. And that most likely would be why you're not getting the ping, because there's something preventing that beautiful seal that you want on there. That's why you're not getting that. So that's why we're going to use it right away. Or, I mean, if you have time, you could sterilize another lid and do it again. But your best bet is just to use it up within a week.
Thanks. And there was a question earlier, I'm not sure what this was in reference to, asking how do you powder them?
Oh, yeah, okay. So I guess I did not explain that. Also a good question. So I put them in a high-speed blender. And then I powder so many things. Powder is amazing. Which you're going to get me down another rabbit hole. I could actually probably talk for a day about this. So here's an example of, believe it or not, we had a bumper crop of lettuce. Like, we had excellent lettuce. So I dehydrated it and put it in the high-speed blender. And I have, now what would I do with dehydrated lettuce, you might ask? Smoothies or any like a casserole or any type of dish that I'm already putting vegetables in. I'm putting more vegetables in because I can't get enough vegetables, right? So I want that nutrition. I want it in there. I've got lettuce, I've got kale, I do it with spinach. You know what I do it with? I do it with like the broccoli stalks and the broccoli leaves. As we grow the broccoli leaves, I can't let that go to waste. I have to, there's something about waste. I can't do it. If we can get the nutrition from that, I'm going to dehydrate it and I'm going to powder it in a high-speed blender and use it in everything I possibly can, especially like a lasagna. I'll put it in there too.
Great, thanks. Those are all the questions in the chat. We'll continue.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about basil. Basil's great. It goes well with tomatoes, and it grows well with tomatoes too. So if you're planting tomatoes, and you can grab online as well. I'm happy to talk about it, but there's companion planting, right? And certain things grow better with other, like certain plants grow better with other plants, right? So basil grows well with tomatoes. And so you can put basil plants. I don't think I'd do more than 4 for what this is. And they'll go well together. Another thing that I actually do without actually even thinking about it is I grow a lot of marigolds. Because they attract the pollinators, and they repel them at the end of every row and sometimes in the middle, and they grow really well. And they're also very, very economical because the seeds are right on the end of them. And I'm constantly saving those seeds, and it's free. And they work for your garden. Like they earn their place in the garden by keeping away what you don't want and attracting what you do need. So marigolds, I would definitely buy those seeds, and they're really easy to grow, and they will grow to nice big they will grow like in clusters, and they're wonderful things to grow. So instead of having to have any chemicals, marigolds are your best bet. Okay, so you're going to need 3 or 4 basil plants to go with your tomato plants. And at the end of the season, you're just going to let those basil plants go to seed. So just stop harvesting, and it will flower and produce seeds. And you can save those seeds for the next year. So when you are harvesting your basil, you're not going to take the whole plant out. You're going to be taking the leaves. You're going to start at the center part. So you have all these leaves coming out on your basil plant. It's it's going to be growing up the middle. Just break off in the middle part, and then your plant's going to get a little bit bushier that way, right? And so you're just going to take it from the middle and then start taking it from the sides. And that way it's going to be a perpetual thing, right? It's going to just keep growing and keep growing. And then when you think, okay, I think we've had enough basil, we're done, or it's looking, it's not looking like it's going to produce very much anymore, leave it, and it's going to flower. And after it flowers, it's going to go to seed. So then once it goes to seed, you're just going to bring it in the house and put it in a paper bag, shake that up, get the seeds loose, and they're ready to plant the next year. Which is another thing I meant to talk about, the perpetual plants in your garden. So when you're growing, say, lettuce, again, you're not going to be pulling the whole thing out from the root. A lot of times I will just go out with a knife and, okay, how will I do this? So it's growing here, it's growing up here, and then you're going to take the knife and cut it off so it still has all the roots in the bottom part down. You can still harvest your lettuce and still use it, but what's going to happen, keep watering it, you're going to get another crop of lettuce, right? It's going to be perpetual. It's going to continue to grow. Same as your spinach and all your leafy greens. That's definitely the way to do it. The kale is wonderful. We had so much kale last year. Okay, so herbs are the most economical thing to grow in your garden, hands down. So herbs are wonderful, and a lot of them you're going to get more seeds from. So it's going to continue to be beneficial to you. So herbs need full sun. So take a look at how much sun you get in the place where you want to place your herbs. They're going to do so well in the full sun. Okay. So like I said before, whatever you eat can be enhanced with herbs. So fresh in season, it's going to regenerate after picking the leaves for continuous harvest, just like I was talking about. And you can use them fresh with your tomato sauce. So I put 3 or 4 fresh basil leaves in there. It makes it so nice. And you can freeze basil. You can freeze it in oil if you do eat oil, but if you don't, then you can put it in water in ice cube trays. And then once it's already frozen, I just pop those out and throw those in a Ziploc bag. So then I can just pull it out and use it. Or sometimes you can do like a blend of herbs with a little bit of water and freeze it and stick those in a Ziploc bag. So you can just pull it out and use it in whatever you're making. It's very, very handy, really great trick to do. My favorite way to preserve herbs is in a dehydrator. I think it's wonderful. So if you don't have a dehydrator, most air fryers actually have a dehydrate option, or you can put them on a cookie sheet and put them in the lowest temperature in your oven for about 4 hours. Might be more than 4 hours. You're going to have to it's a little bit of hit and miss with your own oven, and turn the oven on and off to maintain the lowest temperature in the oven. Again, with the secondhand stores, search there for previously owned dehydrators. And it'll be worth it if you find one. You just give it a second life. And some herbs can be dried in bunches and hung, but basil's not one of them. It doesn't really dry well, just out in the air. It needs a little bit of that heat. So actually, you'll see in the next slide, this is what my house looks like mostly with the dried herbs. So I just put a thumbtack on the wall because I'm classy like that, and then hang them with string. But I have the desired effect, right? It's going to dehydrate them really nice. So I'll make an Italian blend and a Mexican blend of herbs, and it's really great to be able to do that. One of my favorite companies was very expensive that I used to buy from, and they were amazing. Like I would spend way too much money in enhancing my food, and I was bound and determined that I would make my own. And I did. And not only am I saving the money, I don't have the salt in it. I don't have all the salt in it. I don't have, like, I know where my herbs came from. And it really, really enhances the food, especially because I also do a Thai, because we really like Thai food. Speaking of that, there was something that I wanted to show you. If you do grow peppers, hot peppers, I don't know if you like hot peppers, but I put them on a string. So I sewed them and I let them dry like this on their own. They look kind of pretty hanging up, but just with needle and thread, and I put it right through. And then when I go to make something a little bit hot, I'll take it, just break it off and put it in the food, which is really, and they just dry on their own like this, which is pretty awesome. Okay. So fresh herbs per bunch cost average about $2.49 for just a one-time use. You're going to the produce section and you're picking it up because you have a recipe, and you're only going to be able to use that bunch once because you don't have any roots on them. So by growing them yourself, you have perpetual herbs for the season with multiple harvests, which produce their own seeds, all for the price of a pack of seeds, usually about $2.49. So I also use the dried stalks. So I take the dried leaves off of it and everything. I use them for fire starters, which smell great. So we want to use everything that we have. We've been given wonderful things, and we should be able to find a way to use these, a creative way to use everything that we've been given. And that's one of my passions, being able to do that, because I'm always thinking, what would my grandmother have done? They don't just throw things out. They used everything. So that's kind of one of my big things that I try to follow. Okay. So if I was to plant herbs and not go crazy, like if you want to have some herbs to flavor your food and not go crazy like me, plant the basil, parsley, oregano, and thyme. You're going to get it covered with that. You can ask your friends for cuttings or seeds. You can start it from a cutting too, because then you can start the root system going, right? Sometimes a dollar store has seeds for $1. You can get the non-GMO seeds. I'd rather get those, but if you really don't have a lot of money, it still can be done. If you like a mint or a chamomile tea, I'd make sure you plant those in your garden. They're wonderful. They're just going to keep producing for you. And a good hack is, if you have chamomile tea already, open up the bag, because there'll be chamomile seeds inside. I would just plant those. That way you already have it, and you don't have to go buy those seeds. So tea's good fresh, or just dehydrate and throw it in some hot water and enjoy it. It's wonderful. That's my tea. So here we go. The most cost-effective plants to grow in your garden. Definitely tomatoes, cucumbers, greens, the lettuce, the spinach, the kale. Especially if you're plant-based, you're going to be using those. And pay attention to how much you eat of these. Like if you're eating probably a salad every day, at least once, these are things that you're going to be eating a lot of. Notice how much you eat of these, to know how many, to try and figure out how much do I need to plant in order to cover this, because I don't want to go to the grocery store to buy my produce. I want to be a producer myself. So the next one is herbs, like we just talked about. Squash. I could do, I don't know, another couple hours just talking about squash. But squash is wonderful. So the zucchini, And the butternut squash I would recommend. But what do you eat? Do you eat those ones? Zucchini is amazing. You can use it, just put everything. I shred it and freeze it as well. And oh, dehydrated, of course. I made like a snack. I made like dill pickle, zucchini, just little zucchini chips, right? Just things like that. And yes, I made I actually made dill pickles. Where are my dill pickles? Dehydrated my dill pickles to make dill pickle powder to put on my zucchini chips. There's an awesome snack. Okay, I digress. Okay, garlic. Absolutely cost effective. And you know that it is grown right in your own garden. Brassicas, the broccoli, the cabbage. Pole beans. Now these are beans that are growing on the vine, right? So they're the ones that climb, not the little like the black beans or anything. It's not worth it to buy to do it. Not worth it to grow those unless you're really passionate about doing your own that way. Not cost effective. Zinnias, like I said, marigolds, definitely. Rhubarb, that's going to come up every year. Raspberries, blueberries, they're going to come up every year. Definitely cost effective. Least cost effective plants to grow in your garden, potatoes, although very, very much fun and very, very rewarding. So, and super, super easy, not so cost effective. But hey, if you notice that in your potato bag that your potatoes are starting to grow eyes, plant them. See what happens. I dare you. Just do it. That's how you're going to find out. I mean, that's fun. Not cost effective because you can go and buy, you can buy it for cheaper. However, when we go back to our motivation, when you take a look, what is your motivation? Well, my motivation, you know, I want to be a Little House on the Prairie right now. So my motivation is completely there. And to me, yeah, that's worth it because I get that satisfaction and all of the other things that go with it. Onions. Onions are great because remember I was talking about the tops. Well, I put those in everything. I can cut them up a little bit more, but here are my onion tops, and they're a little bit sweet. Like they're beautiful, and they were free. It's just the foliage that nobody uses, but I got it a little bit earlier, and I'm going to use it. And I have to use it. It's amazing. You can even have them as a snack, and I have. Okay, peppers. Again, not cost effective. Do I do it? Yeah, but again, not cost effective. Corn, that's our corn there. Very delicious. The beans, no, they're just not. You're better off to buy them if you're looking at the cost effectiveness. And carrots, also fun to grow, but not cost effective because you can buy them for a better price. Not necessarily non-GMO, not necessarily organic, but still not as cost effective.
Heather, when it comes to potatoes, how much soil depth do you need?
Oh, so when you're doing potatoes like a loose soil. So you're going to want to get in there and you're going to want to be at least 6 inches down. What, like if you dig a trench 4 to 6 inches down, you're going to put your potatoes in and build up the soil. You're going to keep building up the soil. It's going to be like, you're going to build it up on either side, and you're going to continue to build it up on either side. A fun way to do potatoes is to, we did it one year in a barrel. As soon as the foliage would come up, like it down a bit lower, as soon as, or in a container or whatever container you have. So we put it down, I guess about 6 inches. and the foliage would start to come out, the green stuff would start to come up, we'd throw more dirt on it. And then it would keep coming up because it would grow more tubers inside. And then it would keep coming up and we put more dirt on it. And so our barrel was full of potatoes. It was very much fun. So yeah, loose soil and keep building it up. Now, when you're doing it in a row or you're doing it in your garden that way, just keep building it up as much as you can. You're not going to build a castle or anything. It's just going to be like a reasonable amount of dirt, maybe like a hand width, right? If you can keep doing it, that's great, but eventually you're going to run out of dirt. So potatoes are very rewarding because you dig underground and you get this wonderful vegetable that you had until you see it, you don't really believe that it's down there. It's just a windfall. We were so excited. That and sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes was like that for me too. It was just so much fun to do. Yeah, I hope that helps. So I grow and buy from the list. I do both. I have the infrastructure to do it and the motivation, right? So all of these things can be frozen and dehydrated. If you do see a good deal in the produce section, I buy it in quantities. So I've been known to buy, well, I always buy like your onions. If it's a good price, I will get it. And then I might dehydrate them all. And then I have them. And then I usually will powder it and put it into my seasonings. But I will also grow them. I think we grew 600 onions last year. So that's also fun to do. Oh, so the biggest thing to take away from all of this, use everything at your disposal. Do what motivates you, right? And be creative, take chances, and nothing has to be perfect. This is how you learn.
Heather, one question that's come up is if you could go over how to plant seeds inside to get us started, size of pots, which ones are most economical, how to thin it out, light that you need, and what green or yellow beans produce the most.
Okay, so let's talk about planting. So with planting, it all depends on the size of your seed. Now, I just grabbed a bag. I've got seeds here. I don't know if you can see that. That's a pretty big seed, right? That's going to be a lot bigger than those little tomato seeds that we saw, right? So when you're planting this into soil, so you're going to want a container to start them off. You know, the smaller yogurt containers, like a smaller yogurt container, which is about, now I'm going to try not to walk away with this on my head. Hold on. So we're going to go with like a 4 or 5 inch pot, right? So here's a smaller container, right? You're going to fill it all with, I wish I could take you to the greenhouse and show you. You're going to fill it all with already with soil that's already has had some water in it. So it's going to be moist, but it's not going to be dripping wet, right? And you're going to have in a bigger container to mix it up with the water, and then just put it in your pot. And then after you do that, take your finger or a pen. Getting your hands in soil. I remember we talked about how that really, it gives you those great serotonin levels, like getting your hands in the dirt. It just makes you feel good, and it's scientifically proven, which is amazing. So take your finger, do a little indentation, depending on the size of your seed, right? So here's a little seed. Because it's a little bit bigger, we're going to want to go down a little bit deeper. But when I say deeper, I don't mean to the bottom of the thing here. We're going to go down just to make an indentation in it, just to show that, you know, when you stick your finger in chocolate cake, which I don't eat anymore, just like that, right? You're gonna hit a little bit there just to see that someone's put their finger there. Put your seed in, cover it over, put a little more water on it, put it in the windowsill, water it every morning. But if it looks like there's already a whole bunch of water in there, you don't want to drown it, right? You just want it to be moist. So that being said, if you have a smaller seed, it's going to be even higher, right? So it's all proportionate to the size of the seed. So let's say you have the tomato seed, which you saw was like really small. You're still going to do a little indentation and then put a little, you're just going to put just a small bit on top. You can pat it down a little bit and then put a little more water on top. So beans, green or yellow. I find the green ones I get a lot more from the green ones. I don't know why. The tender green, you get a lot of them. Here's the thing with beans and with actually a lot of the produce, the more you pick, the more you're going to get. So don't save it up and think, okay, I'm going to pick my beans when there's a whole bunch of them on there, and then I'm just going to do all of them all at once. What you want to do is when they start coming out and they're looking really good and they're tempting you, you're going to need to pick them right away. Pick them, and because the more you pick them, the more they want to grow. And the reason for that is because that plant is looking at its survival, and it needs to have a little bit of threat in order to survive. So that's why when I told you when you had your seedlings coming up that you're putting your hand on top, well, it wants to survive. So it's going to fortify itself for any outside influence, right? So it's just trying to survive, just like us. So pick them when they're ready, and you're going to get a lot more. It wants to produce. Remember we talked about the seeds and how seeds just want to grow? Well, this plant wants to, its mission is to have its fruit grow, or its produce grow, in order to have more of it go, right? So here's more seeds. Oh, here it's going to produce more, so it can have more plants of the same one. Sorry, I got a little stuck there. With my words, but yeah, it just wants to survive, and it will continuously produce that way.
Great. Can you talk a little bit more about light? You know, do you need to use special light? Can you use natural light? Is there a particular direction that's best?
So natural light is fine. You can buy you've seen the grow lights. It's sometimes if the light is up too high, that's when your seedlings are going to be like really spindly, and like leg is what is the term that they use. So, you know, when they're like really thin and you're thinking, wow, they're really growing. Well, they're growing, but they're trying to reach that light because it might be up way too high, right? Like that artificial light, those grow lights. So in that case, what you're going to want to do is bring that light down a little bit, so it's not reaching for it for so high. The natural light should be fine. And also, if you don't want to actually touch your, if you don't want to put your hand over it, if you forget or whatever, to put your hand over the seedlings, a fan will do the same will have the same effect. So, you know, when you harden off your seedlings, I don't think I mentioned this, about a week before you're going to put them in the ground, you're going to want to put them outside for a week before you actually transplant them, because they're going to get those breezes. They're going to assimilate to the outside temperatures. And so it won't be as much of a shock when you actually take it out of its housing and put it in a whole other environment. You're going to want to give it that week to be like, oh, this is my new home. Okay. All right. I'm a little bit more comfortable. And then after that week is up, then you're going to put it in the ground, because that's another shock. So we just want to mitigate that shock by doing it a little bit at a time, right? Outside, okay, it's going to kind of get used to that environment, and then give it the week to go actually in the ground. You want to set it up for success. Think about it that way.
Well, and speaking of success, someone's asking about peas. When would you plant those, now or in early spring?
So peas are a cold weather crop, which is great. So I wouldn't actually plant them just yet. I would wait. You can, depending on the temperature where you are. So again, you can take chances, and the best way to learn is to do. So you can do it. I would maybe put it in a container to do right now outside, if that's what you wanted to do. And that should work just fine. Again, it's a cold weather crop, so it should go just fine. And I should say about beans, beans do not like the cold. So if you're going to plant beans, if it gets a whiff of cold, it's not gonna, it'll just stop growing. Especially when like it's just a seedling. You want to make sure that you have a good climate for those. So if you want to go ahead with your peas now, by all means go ahead. I would do it in a container, because it's gonna keep that that root system really warm. And it's gonna, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead first.
Oh, I was going to say, when you do it in a container, you're going to need to put a little more water in it than you would normally. Just be aware that you need to put more water in when it's a container.
So speaking of warm, it's an interesting question here. Do you ever start seeds in an Instapot to warm them?
Instapot? No, I have heard of that though. And I've heard of like, you can soak your seeds, and that can be very successful too. But no, I've not done that. If someone's done that, I'd like to hear about it.
Well, that's great. There's no more questions in the chat. If anyone else has questions, go ahead and type them in the chat now, or open your microphone and ask Heather directly. I have gone ahead and put her email address in the chat for folks. And if you can't see the chat, it's murraymasonmeadows@gmail.com, and you can follow up with her there and ask her any more questions and advice, perhaps. One last question has popped up in the chat about the entire garden and watering it. Should you water the entire garden daily, or what's your scheme?
Well, I usually water the entire garden in the morning. If it's not me, it's my husband, because we do it before work. So it takes a long time. Some of the things we can leave, and depending on what we have in there, like the trees, I will leave until I come home from work. It just really depends on what it is. We have hops. I don't water those, and they get along just fine without me watering it. It depends on the plant, but it's definitely more Zen time watering.
Well, there we go. As someone has already mentioned, this has been very informative, very enlightening. I've learned some things too, and I've sat in on your workshops before, so and follow your feed and things like that. So it's always great to learn new stuff every time, little hacks here and there, and tips. So thank you, Heather, for the gift of your time to us tonight to pass along some of this information. I had no idea tomatoes were that much cheaper. So, and for anyone else who, again, has more questions or like to follow up with Heather, feel free to do so. I think you also have a blog or a Facebook feed online somewhere. It's a weird link for that, but.
Yes, I do. I'm on, yeah, if you want to know where it is, we can send it to you. It is actually, Murray Mason Meadows is on Facebook. I'm actually on Instagram as Hez Murray, HEZMURRAY, and I will usually post about the farm. And I just started TikTok. And I'm on there as Murray Mason Meadows. Yeah, you should be able to find me in all of these places. And if you just want to know, send me a message, and I'm happy to try to answer any of your questions. And I'm just so pleased that you came out to listen to me talk about my passion.
Well, Melissa has said many thanks for your time. I wasn't going to try seeds this year, but now I'm inspired to try again. So you've been appreciated, Heather, and we're grateful. Again, thank you, Heather, and thank you all for attending tonight and your kindness with Heather and in listening. So wonderful to be with you all tonight. Take good care. Namaste. Bye for now.